What's up, YouTube? Good morning. This is Eddie Berrios from the Bronx, banging out my morning coffee and my cigarette. I'm here to address DMW. I don't know the rest of her handle, but if you watch my story on the real John Walkman, John, blah, 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 the Jackman story, you'll see her comments. A bunch of babbling. This is a woman who really doesn't know too much of Bruce Lee's story. She knows a little bit, but she doesn't know enough. So her main beef, one of her main beefs that she wrote on one of my videos was that Bruce Lee lived in Seattle way before he fought Wong Jackman. In 1959, Bruce Lee moved to Seattle. That's about the only thing she's right about. But what she fails to comprehend is that Bruce Lee's home base was Seattle. And yes, Miss DMW, Bruce Lee did go to Seattle in 1959. But let me give you a quick living history of Bruce Lee in the United States so you can understand a little more and get off this 1959 and he didn't fight Wong Jackman yet. Bruce Lee was born in San Francisco while his parents were visiting from Hong Kong. Bruce Lee went back to Hong Kong, got in trouble as a kid and a teen, and then he was sent to Seattle in 1959. That's the only part you got right. But what you're failing to comprehend is that Bruce Lee has lived in many cities and many states and then went back to Seattle. So in 1959, he moves to Seattle. From Seattle, he moves to San Francisco, to where he was born, San Francisco, Chinatown. That's where he opened his school. That's where, you know, this Wong Jackman fight happened, which was in that year, and the fight was in August. And in September, Bruce Lee went back to Seattle. Why is this so hard for you to understand, Miss DMW? Why is this so hard for you? And then from Seattle, he came back to Oakland 2 years later, opened up a school in Oakland, and then went back to Seattle. He didn't stay to teach in that school. He left somebody else running that school. In Seattle for a short time, around that same year, he went to Los Angeles, opened up a school in Los Angeles. From Los Angeles, he ended up in Santa Monica, hung out in Santa Monica for a while. That's where he was, and the reason he went to Los Angeles also, because they were doing the last season of Kato. Anyways, from Los Angeles, he goes to Santa Monica. From Santa Monica, he went back to Seattle. From Seattle, he went traveling around. He even went to India looking for a location to film some movie they were doing. I can't remember the name of the movie. After his travels, he went back to Seattle. From Seattle, he went to Hong Kong. That's when they were filming Enter the Dragon. Never made it back to Seattle from Hong Kong because he ended up dying there. Brain hemorrhage due to his chronic drug use, which his wife, Linda Lee, helped. I'm not saying Linda killed him. I'm just saying Linda helped him get the drugs that he was getting while he was in Hong Kong. And DMW, you can't even argue that because this is fact. They have all the evidence and the proof, and I'm pretty sure after I told you that stuff last night, you researched it because you didn't comment on it. You really had nothing to say about it because you saw it. You didn't know about it as much as you think you know about Bruce Lee. I read his bio. Apparently you didn't, because you didn't even know like half of the stuff that I was telling you. You didn't even know where he lived and when he lived there, where he went. You didn't know shit. All you knew was, oh, he was only in Seattle in 1959. And from San Francisco, he went to Los Angeles. No, he didn't. From San Francisco, he went back to Seattle. Then he went to Oakland. Then he went to Los Angeles. Get your shit straight. These delusional fans who try to act like they're impartial, they're partial critics. They're not. They're just in disguise delusional Bruce Lee fans. They don't understand that a lot of good, they still have a lot of bad. It all comes together. I'm not saying Bruce Lee was a terrible person. I just think, he had a lot of demons. And his wife, Linda Lee, didn't really help him with those demons. I think Linda Lee attributed to his demons by helping him get drugs. Bruce Lee was on drugs for years. Linda Lee has never told anyone. She's never talked to his family, his people, that he had a drug problem. No. According to the letters that they authenticated that came from Bruce and Linda Lee was telling whoever she was getting the drugs from, no, he's not hooked. He's okay. He's fine. He needs more drugs. She lied. She lied. And DMW would like all of us to believe that her story of the Juan Jackman fight that Bruce Lee won in 5 minutes is the truth. This woman lied for Bruce Lee to get him drugs. So all of a sudden we're supposed to believe her version of a 5-minute fight that Bruce Lee won, when there were like more than 10 other witnesses and a lot of them said Bruce Lee lost or it was a tie. But we got to believe her word. The woman who lied about her husband's chronic addiction, she holds no credibility with me. She has absolutely no credibility with me. To me, that seems like a woman that would say anything or do anything to help Bruce Lee, including attribute to his drug use. So DMW, understand, because you're so hooked on this 1959 Seattle. Understand, Bruce Lee has lived in Seattle back and forth. He lived in San Francisco, then he moved to Seattle. Stayed in Los Angeles, moved back to Seattle. Went to Hong Kong, moved back to Seattle. Went to other places, went back to Seattle. And his final destination was Hong Kong, where he never came back. And he came back to Seattle. That's where they buried him. So DMW, do your research and cut the shit. I'm totally getting tired of you. Like, you really have no real knowledge of what you're talking about. You're just reading any little clip online and that's what you're repeating. But you don't know. Don't stop telling me you read his bio and you read his whole bio and you know shit. You know nothing. You couldn't even understand that simple fact that he's lived in Seattle back and forth for many, many years. It's Eddie Berrios from the Bronx. Peace. DMW, more research. You really need it.